In this video we're doing proper undervolting for NVIDIA graphics cards using MSI Afterburner. Most guides on YouTube suggest the same thing. Check what frequency your GPU is running at in the game, drop the entire voltage curve in MSI Afterburner, raise only one selected voltage point to your target frequency. Done! You can close this video now. But what actually happens with this method? Now on your screen is the stock curve of a 4070 Super, and it's not much different from yours. As you can see, as frequency increases, the voltage increases non-linearly, it accelerates. It is kind of telling us that the higher the GPU frequency, the less we can reduce its voltage. Now let us look at the curve that results after following those YouTube guide tips. For example, on the 3080 Ti TW3, our GPU was running at 1860 MHz and 962 mV in a benchmark. We were told to raise the peak only at the selected voltage point. As a result, we got a new curve. Now our GPU is running at, for instance, 875 mV, but its frequency is now 135 MHz higher than stock for that voltage. Or in other words, same frequency as stock, but with 87 mV less voltage. The result is achieved, but at what cost? Compare the two curves, new and stock. They intersect at one point. This intersection point is where our undervolting ends and overvolting begins. Importantly, in this undervolting method, our effective frequency becomes lower because of the large frequency gap between curve points. Now here's what happens below this point. Now at any frequency below this intersection point, our card will work at lower frequencies and at higher voltage than on the stock curve, and our undervolt zone is very small. Yes, games are different, situations vary, frequency is not static as some claim. Level loading, complex particle sense, game engines, graphics settings all affect GPU frequency. So what should we do? Simple. You do almost the same steps until opening the voltage curve. Choose frequency, choose voltage, but here's where things get complicated. Same with SSDs, the only thing I dislike, they are too unreliable. You can't store photos from your old phone there, unless you wanna go to jail. Your curve constantly shifts depending on temperature, because of NVIDIA GPU boost. Find at what temperature your frequency is highest. This will be our baseline frequency. To avoid instability from NVIDIA GPU boost, we add an offset to this baseline. You can see this on my 4070 Super. First, fix your target voltage point by dragging all points after it downwards, using Shift to select the range, or by pressing L to lock the voltage point, and observe how its frequency changes when temperature increases. As you can see, at 1 volt our frequency dropped from 2700 MHz at 40 degrees Celsius to 2655 at 75 degrees. This applies to every point on the curve. Find the normal condition where your frequency is at its maximum. This will be your base frequency on the stock curve, to which we will add an offset to avoid instability caused by NVIDIA GPU boost behavior. Method 1. Type needed offset in core clock field, or hold Alt or Shift, grab one point and raise entire curve by offset. On my 4070 Super, stock frequency around 2760 MHz at 1025 mV. Base max frequency at 925 mV is 2490 MHz. So to achieve 2760 MHz, we need plus 270 MHz offset. Recent NVIDIA's GPUs always use 15 MHz frequency steps. This means if you apply 275 or 280 MHz offset, it will actually become 270 MHz. Fix your selected voltage as maximum. Hover cursor just past your target voltage point. Hold Shift, select unwanted range, and drag it down. In the new MSI Afterburner 4.6.6 Beta 5, click your target voltage point and press L twice. It prevents voltage from exceeding this point. Now apply the settings, the GPU will now run at reduced voltage across the full frequency range. I tested plus 270, instant crash in Cyberpunk and 3D Mark Speedway. So we either move to next voltage step up, for example 935, 940 mV, or any available voltage on your curve, or reduce offset by one step, 15 MHz. This is standard frequency step for recent NVIDIA GPUs. I decided to stay at this voltage and simply continue lowering the offset. Through testing, I achieved stability at plus 165 at 925 mV and passed more than 3 hours of testing in OCCT 3D Adaptive, Light, Heavy and Extreme, and 50 loops in Speedway and Steel Nomad. Method 2, just as simple. Instead of holding Shift, we raise the curve while holding Control. Remember that the higher the GPU frequency, the less we can reduce the voltage. But the other side of this coin is that the lower the frequency, the more we can reduce voltage. We raise the curve, block voltage increase by lowering all points to the right, or double pressing L. Apply, test in benchmarks, run stress test for several hours, and test in games with different scenarios. Save profile. Only now do we try overclocking our VRAM. It's better to do this in the stock core for the selected voltage without using offset. We can start with plus 1000 MHz and run a test. Continue increasing in 50 to 100 MHz steps until you notice artifacts, crashes, or a drop in benchmark results. At that point, go back one step and do longer testing. Use OCCT VRAM and run 50 loops of a couple of 3D Mark tests. The longer you test, the higher chances of being stable on the chosen offset for both VRAM and core clock. I recommend running separate stress tests at least 6 hours for core clock settings and at least 6 hours for VRAM, or even 12 hours each for maximum confidence. Stable? Now you can add the VRAM offset to your saved profile. My final profile for 4070 Super: plus 165 core clock, meaning 2655 MHz peak at 925 mV, and plus 1700 memory clock. On the 3080 Ti TW3 I tested all points from 800 mV to 950 mV. You'll find the Google Sheets with the results in the description of the video. Share your results in comments. Subscribe for more.